kind of an... Yeah, that bloopers included. I got a new shirt goofing. Let's go. How? Oh, I love how God works, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. How? Native American greeting that we've all known since we were little kids. How? But more specifically, how long would I have walked around with that on my shirt all day without knowing it? With this neck, I can't look down. Mad face. Well, that was getting aggressive. Sorry. I'm having a rough day. This thing is not easy to live with. But anywho, I digress. I want to talk about the Native American greeting, how. I live in northeastern Nevada. No, it is nowhere near Vegas. Our Nevada is mountains and beautiful, well, it's mountains, and desert. I was actually raised in the Nevada desert. I mean, not like by wolves or anything. We don't really have wolves. We got coyotes. But we also have Native Americans as well. In fact, natives in our area are pretty predominant. In fact, our high school mascot, I was a cheerleader, shock face, was Chief Wanawina. One time I got stuck on his head. I did. All right, we'll break for a story. Auntie, how did you get stuck on Chief Wanawina's head? Ooh, I was an itty bitty thing. We were at cheerleading camp in Scottsdale. Chief Wanawina had this massive head, like big head. And whoever was doing the mascot, her name was Angie, and she was tinier than me. But the head was huge. Well, at cheerleading camp, we thought it would be kind of cool for me to be on his shoulders and then do a, if you're a cheerleader, 1, 2, pop up. And then she basically just shoots me off with that, right? Oh no, I got stuck. Oh, I wish we had cameras back then. We had to lay Angie down and kind of roll her around to get me off of his head. Anyways, I digress. We were the Elko Indians. I don't know what they are anymore now, because woke America, it's changed and it is no longer that. It actually upset the natives here in our area because they were like, what? That's been the mascot for our school forever. We love it. Why do people gotta mess with things, right? And before you start saying, Auntie, you should call them indigenous. Don't. Not the Indians that I know. Not the natives that I know. And trust me, I know them, baby. Not only do I know them, I lived on the reservation. I did for 2 years. They used to call me Stands with Beer. In fact, natives, that's what we call them. There are so many that are like my family. You never messed with Colette when I was younger. Not because they would beat you up, but because they loved to form a circle around me and watch me beat you up. No joke. You don't mess with the natives here, though. Not only did I live on the Indian reservation, that's what we call it, so don't come at me. Actually, we call it the res. But my dad was actually raised in, and no, he was legitimately raised in the Nevada desert. He lived in the mountains with my father. Well, that was him. My grandfather and my great-grandfather and his uncles. He was raised by them. My dad was actually underground mining at age 7. Oh, he doesn't like this story, but once he accidentally burned their house down. He was in charge of starting the fire because they didn't have electricity or anything like that. And unfortunately, little 7-year-old Buck, who had his little hatchet, that's what he got for Christmas, he loved it. Well, there was a nest in the chimney he didn't know about. He went to the outhouse and then came out to a big fire. Anyways, legitimately Sons of the Pioneers kind of thing. My dad went to school in Owyhee, Nevada. It is a massive Indian reservation. He also lived in a place called Mountain City. When he got a little bit older, he started to live there on his own and he raised himself. I believe since he was around 13 or 14, he lived on his own. And little Buck was loved by all. And so he went to school. He was the only, maybe 1 or 2 other kids that were white. The rest were natives. And they loved my dad. Just like I lived on the res and they loved me. My brother had a lot of native friends too, and they called him White Matt. There was something else I was going to tell you, but now I can't remember. Oh, yeah, this is a big one. My youngest, Logan, part native. He is Shoshone, or Shoshone. But he's a card-carrying Native American. He even gets the perks, yo. My little blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, he is native as it comes. So just to paint the picture as to how much the indigenous, they hate when they honestly, I'm here to tell you, I can't tell you how many of my friends from the res have called when they see these videos. They're like, girl, you better stop calling people indigenous people. They hate it. They're like, we're natives. We're Native Americans, but it's okay still to call us Indians because that's what we are. We're Native Americans. And then they end the call before, and they say, and don't forget we're your family too, yo. And they are, especially Logan. Anyway, so let's get to it. The Native American meeting, how? My friends used to do this up on the colony. They'd say, how? And I'd say, now brown cow. Oh, we used to have so much fun. Living on the res is not for the faint of heart. Oh, I'm here to tell you, I've seen some things, yo. I've seen flesh steppers up there. But I've also seen some crazy shit. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Some of my favorite memories were up on the res. But do you know why Native Americans, historically, like when we would play Cowboys and Indians when we were little kids, and yes, that's what, it was a game. People would say, how, right? You want to know why they did that? Why they had that greeting? No, I'm not going to get the calls from my friends. The natives across America, because natives are American, Native Americans, why this was so important to them? Well, I'll tell you what. They wanted to know who they were coming up to when they were meeting, how, if they were to finish their sentence, how many fingers do you have? That's what that meant. Cliffhanger. I wasn't sure. How many fingers do you have? That's what they wanted to know before you get too close. How? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Or do you have 6? Why would they want to know that? And who would have 6? Oh, that's easy. There were giants in those days. And also after that. You see, the Nephilim, notoriously and historically, well, they had one enemy that made the history books. You hear a lot of stories about, and it has nothing to do with people in Jerusalem. I mean, there's stories there. But do you know there are more stories about Native Americans fighting the Nephilim than probably any group of people ever in the history of ever? In fact, did you know, just miles from your auntie's house in Lovelock, Nevada, it is one of the most historic, notorious, battles between the natives and the giants, and it's actually historically recorded than ever before. The Lovelock Giants, a group of nefarious red-headed giants that plagued the Paiutes of Lovelock, picking them off one by one, gobbling them up, and fighting the Paiutes. These massive 12, 13-foot giants that had red hair, lived in a cave. No, I don't know if they lived in a cave, but they died in a cave. And they all had, how many? 6 fingers and 6 toes. There's actually a giant museum in Lovelock, Nevada, because somebody who was going in Guamo, or whatever, bat poop hunting in a cave, discovered one of the largest findings of giant historical paraphernalia. I don't know. Shoes, weapons, weird toys, like duck decoys, massive ones, but also the skeletons, the remains of red-headed giants, the Nephilim. The other interesting thing is at the front of the cave, it looked as though it was scorched from a fire long ago. And that's because it was. You see, the Paiutes had it up to here, up to there, with these Nephilim taking their people out, and a war began. Pew, 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 this massive battle between the Paiutes and the Nephilim, well, it did not end well for the Nephilim, let's just say that, because the natives, trust me, they're smart. And they cornered them into this cave, which at that point, yes, their plan, it worked. What was their plan, Auntie? That was easy. Get them in the cave and set the cave on fire. The mouth of the cave. Hence, that was the end of the Lovelock Giants. And in many cases, the skeletal remains that were found later by these men in the 50s, well, that was the end of those remains because, somebody called the Smithsonian. That's a whole nother video. But when they say how, it isn't to say hi, it is to say how many fingers do you have? Are you a Nephilim or are you like us? And your homework, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the class, is this. Start looking up how many remains of giants have been found in America alone. You will find historically and notably more giant skeletal remains have been found and, oopsie poopsie, missing, gone, never existed, Smithsonian, in America than, really anywhere in this world. Why would that be? There were giants in those days. How? And also after that, how? The origin of the Native American greeting, how many fingers do you have? Sucker! Big, with my great big gigantic heart and my 5 fingers, 5 toes.